And it's a size 12 heavy enough wire, long shank 12. Okay, and I'm going to start off just by coming down the hook a bit with some black thread in 6/0. Okay, so I have enough on there that I have a nice grip with the thread. And then as I come down, I'm going to take a strand of black, just cut it off here, a strand of black flexi floss or spanflex type material. Just going to catch it in here, just be careful, just catch it in and just get a good pinch, and I'm going to stretch it and I'm going to run it along and just keep it on my side and slightly underneath the hook. Okay, and when I get down to the bend of the hook here, I stop and get that out of the way. Then I'm going to pull up this part and trim off that waist end. Okay, for the tail of this fly I'm using black marabou. So if you can get your black marabou, always try and get the best quality that you can. So we're looking for some of the longer fibers here, so I'm going to carefully peel that back on the stem so that I don't lose it, because I might use it for another fly. And then I'm going to pull off a pinch of these longer fibers, a fairly generous bunch. Okay, and then I'm going to cut that off. What I'm going to do then, I'm just going to moisten my fingertips and twist this end so that it's a bit neater and easier to manage. There's not too many bits flailing around. So I'm going to go with about 1.5 times the shank length, but I'm going to be pinching off some of that. Okay, so I'm going with a tail that's basically a good bit longer now than what I'm going to finish with. And just trap that marabou down. I'll just bring my thread back down to it there. Okay, so somewhat up to you now as regards what length of a tail. Now some of the fibers are naturally a bit shorter than the others, which gives me a sort of a measuring point anyway. Don't cut these with the scissors, pinch them. Have a look and see what you think. Okay, so you'll end up with something in or around the hook shank length. And that's generally, I like to tie these on the likes of a long shank 12. I could tie it on an 8 or a 10, which might be this long, but the difficulty with that is the longer the tail is, the more likely you're going to get short takes potentially. So I like the idea of having, you know, a tail in or around the length of the shank. I might even pinch a tiny bit more off this when I'm fishing, but I still have a reasonable body and thorax length. So look, that's just my preference. You might have a different preference. So I'm going to add some mosaic flash to the tail, which is this stuff, and I'm going to literally try and pick out just 2 to 3 strands. Don't want a huge amount of flash, just 2 or 3 strands is enough out of this. And then I'm going to cut those. Now, I'll probably end up cutting them a bit longer than the tail length, but I can trim them after. Okay, so I'm going to catch some in on this side. Okay, just trap them down, and then I'm going to pull them around over the top and to your side, and ideally they'll be running a little bit along the side of the tail. So just rotate the vise just to get a look at them here and make sure I don't cut the wrong thing, and then I'm just going to cut them around the length of the tail. And the same then on this side, just get that flexi floss out of the way, measure them up and cut them around the length of the tail. Okay, so again, just wet that just to give you an idea of, you know, what it looks like when it's wet and the shape of it. Okay, right, so that's kind of what you're looking at with that. Now I'm going to wax my thread to put on my dubbing, and I want to create a bit of a taper on the body, Now we have a body, we have a thorax area, and we have a smaller area around where the eyes are. So I'm going to have to leave a little bit of space here for the eyes. So I'm going to come up about a third or so, or just a bit more than a third of the way up the rest of the shank with this dubbing. And for the body part of the dubbing, just to keep it kind of slim like the natural insect and with a taper, I'm using SLF hair dub. Okay, it's the Davy Watton one, and it's a set of colours, and I'm using the black. And this black has a touch of blue UV through it, which I just like in my nymphs. So dub that on, as I say, try and get it kind of thin enough at the start, and if I need to go back over it a little bit just to form the taper I want when I come up the shank, I can do that. So add a little bit to it there. It's easy to use the hair dub. It's a nice soft dubbing. It's not mad spiky, but we don't need it too spiky yet. So that brings me up, as I say, on the overall length I'm about halfway is up here. But this area here is, you know, the last maybe mil or two has been kept for eyes. So, you know, we have a bit of a thorax area to go in here. So I get my rib, and just be careful at the start and just bring that rib up 3 or 4 turns up through the body and catch it in. Now when I'm using this flexi floss type rib, I like to get a couple of turns and I'm bringing the thread forward. I really want to lock this in, because if I cut this off and it's not locked in, it's just all going to unravel. So give it a bit of a stretch, trim it off, okay, like so. I'm going to come back, so I want to add a wing case to this. Now there's a few very long fibers that I don't need there yet, so I'm going to add a wing case to this. So for the wing case, I'm going to use two choices, I suppose, in terms of what I use on this pattern. A lot of time I use this rafene. It's a substitute raffia, which is a type of straw. Or if I want to add a bit of buoyancy, I'll use some maybe 1 to 2 millimeter foam. I like this one for the damsels because it has this reflective side to it, which I would pull over the top. But I'm just going to use the rafene on this one. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to wet it. It's a bit easier to work with when it's wet. And I'm going to trim down at an angle, a reasonably nice long part on an angle, and that's going to sit back over the body here, almost as, you know, a part of the wing case that's splitting, or gives the impression of it, a bit of movement as well, because it's just free moving there. Pull that all back, trap it down. I'm going to add a black cock hackle, reasonably long fibered one, which is going to represent legs of the insect around the thorax area here. So just get that. I'm just going to cut it, and again I'm going to add a little bit of wax to my thread here. It is a pre-waxed thread, but a little bit of extra grip is no harm. So I'm going to come in there and catch that in, trap it down, okay, like so. So my thorax area is going to start here, and basically I'm going to be going back and forward. So I'm going to add a little bit of black seals for, this is a Vineyard Seals for sub. I'm going to add a, you know, sort of about a 50-50 mix of that with the hair dub, just to give me a slightly scruffier dubbing here. And I want this dubbing a little bit heavier than the dubbing I used on the body, so a little bit more bulkier, to that this thorax area stands out. So I'm bringing that dubbing down. I'm going to add another little bit and bring it forward, so that'll make it a bit, as I say, a bit thicker, a bit more bulk, and it'll give me something if I want to tease it out a bit afterwards, brush it out, I can. So coming back forward through it, just make sure that it's going on the way I want, like so. And then I stroke back anything that's in the way. You can see that that's a little bit scruffier. Then I'm going to take my hackle and I'm just going to palmer it forward in relatively close turns. Okay, so I get a couple of turns, you know, maybe 5 turns or so. So you know, there's 2, 3, 4, and we get 1. So just got that about right, about 5 turns on it. Okay, and then I'm going to trap down that hackle there. I'm going to pull that stem back, and again I just stroke everything back, okay, and trap it in, like so. I'm going to remove that hackle. There might be enough on it to get another fly. So, and sometimes I tie the fly differently with the rafene and the eyes earlier, but this is probably for someone having a go, starting off a little bit easier way of proportioning the fly. So I'm just going to give that a little brush. So that's going to brush out a bit of that dubbing. I'm going to brush down on the hackles here to each side because I'm pulling the wing case over. Okay, and you can use a bodkin or a scissors as well. Your finger just to flatten them down. Okay, I'm going to take that rafene then. I'm going to pull it over the top. Okay, try and show you this. Pull it over the top, keep it fairly level on top, and I'm going to catch it in. Okay, and that's effectively part of my wing case. Now I'm bringing the thread forward right to the eye here and keeping that rafene on top. Okay, and come back a turn or so. I'm going to get some eyes. I have to open a box here to get the eyes. So these are some eyes I have. It's a bead chain, and I don't know, it's 2 to 3 mil. At a guess, it just said medium on it. Okay, I can't recall who supplies them, but I have a contact that I get those bead chain eyes off of in a couple of colours. So next thing I'm going to add these eyes. Now you can add them underneath or on top, it's up to you. These aren't metal, so they're not adding great weight, so I'm placing them on top. Okay, and basically catch them in with a bit of figure of 8 on your thread. Okay, and then just to make sure they don't spin around the hook too much, get a drop of super glue. This is a brush on super glue, and just dab it in there and give it a second or two to start to get a grip. Then I'm going to go back to my hair dub without the seals for, because again I don't want this dubbing on this part of the fly personally to be too heavy. I want it fairly slim. And then I'm going to get my wax and I'm going to add some of this hair dub, and I want to keep it fairly slim. Okay, and I'm just going to figure of 8 it around those eyes, and then it might get a turn or so back here. Right, so this is what it looks like at this stage. And I'm going to catch this rafene, I'm going to keep it fairly tight, and I'm going to bring it back between those eyes, okay, and trap it down. Now, I like the front of the fly to be scruffy because of legs, but just, I suppose, look for appearances and all that, I'll just trim off 1 or 2 of those fibres there, just, right, just people probably would be inclined to do that. Okay, so something that looks out of the way, just trim it down, tidy up the area. Okay, and that's fine for what I want. I probably normally wouldn't even go to that bother. So we're pretty much nearly there now. So what I do is get my whip finish tool and I'll whip finish this off. Now you could, if you want, put some glue on the thread and a bit of dubbing and put another bit of dubbing there. Okay, I kind of want to show distinct proportions in the fly, so I generally don't do that, but it's up to you really. Look, for the sake of maybe appearances, as I say, not fish catching, but just in, you know, the look of the fly and that, if you know, if that's what you're into, right? What I'll do is I'll add a small bit of dubbing onto this, okay, like so, and I'll just give it 1 or 2 turns, and then I'm just going to put a bit of super glue on the thread there, give it a turn or 2, and a quick whip finish, okay? Just watch the eyes when you're whip finishing on this, because you don't want your thread to get caught in on the eyes. Okay, so that's done, glued, unlikely to go anywhere. The choice now here, whether you want to cut this off flush or cut it off. I'll show you one way and then we might do it the other way. So I'm going to come in, so the way I'm holding it and cutting it off, that there's a slight angle on it, and you get this sort of a reached wing case appearance. Or if you don't want that, you can come in and cut it fairly flush. Okay, I'm not sure it matters to the fish, but depends what appearance you yourself like to give your damsel nymph. Okay, so you can see the movement and a bit of flash in the tail here. You have your fairly slim body tapering up. You have a heavier thorax area, which are hackle, which kind of gives the leggy appearance, and it's a bit scruffier. And then you have your very distinct eyes. Now you could use other color eyes. I'm just using black, that's what I use on this fly. And the last thing, I suppose, if you want to do it, is to protect this rafene, the bit over the eyes and the bit over the wing case here, give them a shot of UV resin. Okay, so just be a little bit careful, you don't want it to go everywhere, and just make sure you get a nice generous coating, and that will stop the fish's teeth from doing too much damage. Now, if you like the third segment of the wing case, this sort of pointy bit that is coming back, I'm not going to put any resin or anything on that, because I'm quite happy for that to have a bit of movement. And when the rafene gets wet, you know, it's going to be fine. But it gives a nice shiny wing case. If you don't have rafene, if you can get a strip from a black sack, like a black refuse or rubbish sack, you can cut a strip out of that, it will do. Or as I say, you could use foam. I'm sure they'll work fine. I used black plastic as a wing case on nymphs lots of times, and it worked out well. So there's your black damsel nymph, and there's just a nice handy way doing it.